I'm here to talk about a franchise which is one of my favourites, and it's also in one of my favourite genres. That genre being the RPG genre. Be it Western or Japanese RPGs, I'll play them all, and normally I love them all. And one of the main franchises which everyone remembers and seems to have a love for is the Final Fantasy franchise. And with the recent release of Final Fantasy 13, people have been somewhat critical of the new systems within the game and the changes it's gone through. Now, it's only natural for franchises to change through the times. I mean, just look at the recent release of Splinter Cell Conviction. It's a bit more action orientated. Or even Fallout 3. It used to be a top-down, third-person style RPG shooter, and obviously now it's a first-person shooter. It's only natural that genres and franchises evolve, and when a game developer does this choice, they run the gauntlet of either being embraced by the masses or rejected by their already loyal fan base. Now, one franchise which kind of managed to pull off this perfectly by balancing the newcomers to the franchise and the old market they had in one beautiful package while keeping everyone happy is easily the Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 1 was a survival horror, obviously, which everyone knows. This is the GameCube remake, and it solidifies what you want in survival horror. Slow movement, limited ammo, scary monsters, what I like to call cemetery controls, fixed camera views. And as the series went on, it started to get stale, admittedly. I mean, by Resident Evil 3, people were starting to get a bit annoyed that it hadn't really gone through much changes. And then after some more titles came out and more games in the franchise, along came Resident Evil 4, very quietly, may I add, and this game blew everyone's mind. It became a much hailed classic, a fan favourite, and just a favourite among gamers, full stop. Now, there are some franchises which have tried to emulate Resident Evil's successful transformation over the years, and the most recent being Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy has always had a strong fan base both in Japan and in the UK and Western shores. So with the recent release of Final Fantasy 13, that was supposed to cater for perhaps the more casual market, as well as trying to keep a hold of their already strong fan base, it turned Final Fantasy 13 into a bit of a mess. Now, I'm quite a big fan of the Final Fantasy franchise, and I have most of the games, and with the release of Final Fantasy 13, I was obviously excited. However, it turned out to be a bit of a disappointment. Now, I'm not going to mention the story, because each story in each Final Fantasy game is different, and that's a unique point of every game. I'm going to talk about the gameplay and the changes which I don't like. So when we talk about Final Fantasy 13, we would expect, as an RPG and as a franchise that is kind of famed for the open worldness of sorts, we would expect Final Fantasy 13 to follow suit. But no. The first 15 to 20 hours are mind-blowingly boring. You are limited to a couple of tasks, and you are sent across a linear path constantly. There is very, very, very little exploration in the first section of the game. Now, some people may think, well, this is just a sacrifice that has to be made as the franchise evolves. But I challenge that idea. I don't think it should have been done. After 15 to 20 hours, you should be into the game, well into the game, mindset done. You should be investing into the story and the characters and enjoying the game. But I found Final Fantasy 13 to be one hell of a chore to play through. I stopped around the 22 hour mark, and I just give up. I thought, why bother and torture myself? This is boring. Being limited to attacks an auto attack feature, which is just mind-blowingly stupid. Get this: when you're in a boss fight or just a fight with a monster, you have the option to choose auto attack. The auto attack system will choose the spells and attacks that you have that is the most effective against the boss. Essentially, this is the game playing itself, and when they include this option, I think, well, what's the point of me playing? Seriously, what's the point? If I'm just click auto attack constantly, what's the point? And before anyone says, yes, I do realise after I think it's 30 hours or so, Final Fantasy 13 does open into the Final Fantasy experience we all know and love. But I question that and go, well, why can't it be like from the start? Put it this way, I put in Final Fantasy 13 for 15 to 20 hours, I didn't have any fun. I put Final Fantasy, let's say 7, the classic, in, and within an hour I'm having just as much fun as I would expect from a Final Fantasy game. Same with Final Fantasy 8, and same with Final Fantasy 6, and I'm running out of hand space, I'm not picking any more. So my question is, why did Square Enix have to make the game so linear and limited? Now, if I had to pinpoint some issues I'll have with the game, it wouldn't be the combat system. I quite like the combat system in Final Fantasy 13, I really do. The main flaw of Final Fantasy 13 for me is the linear paths, the lack of skills and spells, and I might be a bit of a side for saying this, I prefer leveling a character to the sort of leveling system they use in this. I prefer just to have level 1, level 2, level 3, etc, etc, and I put the points in a number of different places. But this pretty much is linear in that respect. And when we're talking about characters, Final Fantasy 13 really doesn't have that many memorable cast members. I mean, that's Lightning. She is the main character in this, and so far from what I've seen, she's a female Cloud, pretty much a female Cloud. The character in this called Snow, who looks like Cloud with a headband on. He's a rebel resistance leader, but there's nothing much I like about him. He spends most of the game just shouting this woman's name, which he's getting married to, but that's going into spoilers. There's a character called Hope, who is pretty much the most annoying character in Final Fantasy franchise history, and I thought I belonged to Tidus, but Hope came over and he played well. And I think she's a little girl, I can never tell with Japanese games, called Vanilla, Willy Vanilli, Iced Tea, I don't know what her name is, it's hard to pronounce, and she's the typical overly happy Japanese happy slappy girl who dresses in provocative clothing, let's say. And the character everyone seems to remember about Final Fantasy 13, SARS. Is it SARS? See, I would say SARS, but that was a virus that happened a couple of years ago. Anyway, SARS plays a token black guy, huge afro, stereotypical, but he's got a chocobo on his hair. And that begs the question, where the hell does it go, for its toilet breaks? But overall, none of these cast members have any impact that, say, Cloud or Sephiroth have, or Auron from Final Fantasy X. And for that reason alone, that makes Final Fantasy 13 a pretty weak game from what I've played. Now, I'm not saying it's a terrible game, I'm just saying so far it's pretty disappointing. But I do hope to play it a bit further on if I can sort of stand it, and I really do hope after the 30-hour mark it increases in quality and goes back to the good old formula that Final Fantasy games went on. And on that subject, there's a game that Square Enix made a few years ago, well, I say a few years ago, quite a while ago on the SNES, and a lot of people only think that Square Enix only do Final Fantasy 13, not Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy franchise, but no, they're doing a fantastic game on the SNES, which has recently been released on the DS. Well, I'll say recently, 2008 I think it was, it came out on the DS, or 2009, and that game is Chrono Trigger. And I know this isn't Xbox related, if you have a DS, I seriously suggest you pick this up, because trust us, this is a lot more fun than this. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say for now. So I'll try and bury my way through Final Fantasy 13 and deploy my thoughts